All right, we're shooting. So, continuing our series with local authors, we are here today with Terri Johnson. We met at the Kensington Day of the Book Festival.
Yes.
You had a table there, and we met there for the first time. And then we talked about your book, and I just love the concept of it.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming on. But please tell me about yourself and your journey, I'd say.
Okay. Well, my name's Terri Johnson, and I'm the author of Body Safety Zones BSD storybook, and also Body Safety Zones coloring activity book with memory game cards. And the concept of the book came about because at one point I worked in the correctional system. And one of the things I was the second person that they would usually see because I had to do the mental health intakes.
Yeah.
And what I noticed was that a lot of individuals that had serious crimes that they had committed or were being accused of committing or repeat committers had a history of abuse.
Wow.
And it was really high. And I'm just talking about the ones that I saw. And I would do 30 to 40 assessments within my shift.
Wow.
And I would say anywhere between 85 to 90 something had history of abuse. And percentage of them, of the ones that I did, and the majority of them were physical and sexual abuse. So even though I've worked with children since I've been a child, one of the things that really struck me was how this was a public health crisis that we don't pay attention to, abuse.
Wow.
And the impact that it has on substance abuse, mental health, people that have interpersonal partner violence, etc. And so I said, I have to do something about it. And in my school, I talked to my students about body safety, body agency. But what really pushed me and really finally made me say I need to do this was working in the correctional system and seeing how many people had gone through some type of abuse and the impact that it had on other family members' children. And so I'm a survivor myself, and it just really struck me. And I said, we have to do something about it. So I went about writing the book. It did not take me that long to write the book. And I wrote it in April of 2020, and then got it published in April of 2020. And then I wanted to have something like a supplement to it to kind of reinforce it, something that would be fun because it is a heavy topic.
It is, yeah.
And so in October of 2020, that's when I published the coloring activity book. And inside,
That's this one right here.
right. Okay. And one of the things that I enjoyed as a child was the memory game cards, where you would flip the cards over and you would have to remember where the cards were positioned. So they're also memory game cards to just reinforce the concept inside the book. But in terms of myself, I am a mother of 2 adult children. I've been a social worker since 1996, and I've worked in a pretty diverse populations with corrections in the school system, for managed care, doing crisis line, and also in ER doing psych and medical social work. So, and I have a private practice where I go out and I handle crises, bank robberies, people that have died, and I work with the organizations to help support the employees based on that. So that's my background.
Wow. I don't know where to begin. Yeah, it is absolutely a heavy topic. But like you said, it's a crisis. I mean, 80-90% is huge.
Yes.
And it makes sense, right? For those past traumas that lead to, these, let's say, potential actions or alleged actions. But your book is tailored towards children.
Yes.
Right. So yeah. Tell me about that.
Right. So the reason why is because I truly believe, like the saying from Frederick Douglass, that it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
Absolutely.
And so if we teach children, and our children now are very feisty and they have a lot of, they are allowed to express themselves a lot more. So my idea was to teach them about the information and then teach them how to self-advocate. So giving them the information, letting them know what their zones are. I do not name in my book at all the body parts. That seems to make a lot of parents nervous. I leave that up to the parents.
Right.
But I used, I figured this is a way to start the topic because a lot of times parents don't know where to start.
Right.
So I placed them in zones. The children learn their zones. They learn about people, that their body belongs to them, and that no one has a right to touch them without their permission. And that if someone does touch them without their permission, they have kind of like a safety network of people that they can tell.
Right.
And we talk about that. And I'm currently working on a workbook to help teachers and therapists actually have sessions that they can have in class or in groups that they can have where we work on, like, for instance, consent and boundaries. What does it look like to actually say no? What does that look like? What if a friend shares with you something that someone has done to them? What do? So this is going to be the breakup of the different sessions. And I'm up to like 15 so far to give people a variety, but anywhere from 6 weeks to 8 weeks, I think is pretty good to work on it. And I just finished up with my students at my school sessions where I worked with kids from pre-K to third grade. And that's what my book focuses on. You can read it to babies actually, but I focus on 4 to 8 year olds and teaching them how to really speak up. And one of the things that I like to read to have adults around because they need to hear it. A lot of times we make our kids, go give auntie such and such a hug and a kiss. Well, what if they don't want to give them a hug and a kiss? We don't want to teach them that it's okay to have their boundaries stomped on or looked over. So that's what the book really basically is about. It's about, the character name is Miss B Persistent, and she's a school social worker, and she talks to her children in a health and wellness class. And I wasn't too original. That's exactly what I've done over my 28 years of working in the school system in Baltimore. In some form or fashion, I've talked with young people all the way up to 21 years old about their bodies, about their space, proximity control, having body agency, and what does that look like. Of course, with the older, we talked about intimate partner violence, domestic violence, so it got a little bit heavier. But with my babies, I don't kind of pull punches. We talk about what does it look like if we come up with scenarios, and I ask them for scenarios, and I find out whether or not they think that's appropriate or inappropriate.
Right.
One of the things that I find has been a little not controversial, but different with when I talk to clinicians, I tell them that I don't teach children about good touch and bad touch. And the reason why is because our body sometimes responds the way it responds. So even though it may be bad for, let's say, an older child or an adult to touch us in a certain place, our body may respond in a way where it feels good.
Right.
Right? And so if we teach them good touch, bad touch, what do I do when a bad touch felt good? It's confusing.
Right.
So I just teach them that it is a matter of people are not supposed to touch you there. You're not supposed to touch other people there. We go over more than just not to give away the book, but we go over more than just the bathing suit, what your bathing suit covers up. Because some people are from that belief. Well, you teach them as long as it's the bathing suit. Well, there's other areas that the bathing suit does not show up that's used as an office for sexual contact.
Right.
And so I go over all of it. Like I said, I place them in zones. And the children respond very well to it. We even have a little song called the Wiggle Song that goes with the books that, because young children love to move. So we do movement as well.
I think this has wisdom in targeting a problem at a young age, right? So you can prevent that. Like you said, you had that Frederick Douglass quote. I think it says wisdom in that. Can you walk me through this this cover out there?
Yes.
I'm going to show it to you.
Yes, so that's Miss B Persistent in front of Rosalie Jones Elementary School, and she's standing with a smile with her hand on the shoulder of a statue of Rosalie Jones, who is a real person. That was my great-grandmother. That was my person, my safety person, my all. And it's in front of a school, and it actually is shaped like a school that I worked at for several years, that I was blessed to have administrators that allowed me to run these health and wellness classes throughout the day, throughout the week. So I was able to talk to the children not just about body safety, but what does it look like to be a good friend, conflict resolution, all types of subjects. I even talked about drugs with the young kids, age appropriate, developmentally appropriate, of course. But it just shows something that school meant a lot to me. The children there meant a lot to me. Shout out to Marianne Winterland Elementary School. So everything on here has something to do with me. The 1920, when the school was established, is from my sorority. The year my sorority was established. So it has things that are meaningful for me. The back shows my niece and nephew characters. And then some students. So yeah, it shows a part of who I am, and I think that. You as an author, you can be very vulnerable at times. And for me, it was something that I wanted to do for a long time, but having a confidence in my writing, having a confidence, will someone accept that? It's like, do I birth this book baby or do I keep it to myself?
Right.
And so there's a vulnerability in that. So I felt more comfortable sharing. Throughout the book, you see children of different nationalities because it does not discriminate. Abuse does not discriminate. It happens in every culture, every socioeconomic status. And so I wanted to show that.
Yeah, and we appreciate that for sure. So walk me through the different services that you offer.
So right now, I used to have a brick and mortar private practice. I no longer I have a private practice. I do virtual.
Right.
But I mostly am gearing more towards going out doing disruptive event management and doing crisis status. So like I said, going to the businesses and working with groups of people, doing one-on-ones as well. I just had one last Friday. Like I said, it was a bank robbery and it had just happened. And so I was like 2.5 hours out after it had just happened. Wow. So when I went to talk with the employees, it was very fresh for them. It was very fresh for the person that received the letter. And so that's what I'm mostly focused on. And then I would love the opportunity to go into schools and work with children doing body safety zones, doing the 6 weeks to 8 weeks. I am a year and a month out from after this school year of retiring. So that's what I'm praying. This book will pick up steam and I'll have, school districts purchase the book, have me come out, and if I do no more than readings and have that discussion with them, that's a start. Yeah. I've been blessed to be able to do this internationally. I've done it in Ghana. I've done it in Colombia, South America. And the reception was wonderful. Right. It was amazing. So I'm looking forward to doing it at home.
Yeah, well, I think schools in this area should absolutely be covering this topic and contacting you. So administrators should be contacting you. I think PTA should be contacting you, because in my experience, I think almost everyone has interacted with someone that's been through some kind of trauma right in the past. But advocating and having this content covered locally in different schools. Even parents purchasing the book and covering this with their kids. Right. I know as soon as I heard about the book from you, I reached out and I got a copy. Yeah. This is actually my copy.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Because I think it's important for my own daughter to know this, right? Because you, as a parent, you're not always with your child, right? They can be at camps, they can be at school, they can be with friends, they can be with family. Like you said, trauma can happen with family. Yeah. And from people you would least expect it to happen, right? But having her know this information is important, so she knows that she can protect herself, as well as teach others and how they can protect themselves. So I think it's so important. Is there anything else down the line, book-wise or event or service-wise?
Yes, so I'm going to be back in Kensington. While I was at the Day of the Book Festival, I met Mr. Boston, and he is over the Juneteenth celebration that happens here. So I'll be back this away on the 14th. Yeah. And so I'm looking forward to that. I really like Kensington. I didn't know anything about it, but I really enjoyed.
It's a small little city. Yeah. So many locally owned businesses, people. The people are amazing here.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot. So, and I'm looking to. I haven't seen it advertised yet, but someone told me about the Labor Day activities that they have down here and being possibly a vendor there. Okay. And so I'm planning on doing that. The 7th, I'm going to be in Randallstown doing an event with YMCA. So YMCA,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be reading there.
That's beautiful.
So
That's
yes,
awesome.
I'm going to have a chance to do that. And like I said, I'm working on. I don't know if I'm going to have it done by the end of the summer because my summer is looking kind of busy. But I'm hoping that I'll have the workbook done by the end of the summer.
Yeah.
And maybe go into publishing it in the fall. So that's what I'm shooting for. But during the summer, I am planning on reaching out because you're like the third person that recommended that I should reach out to Montgomery County.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm gonna definitely do that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to share to show people just how powerful this book can be for them is that when I have a hard time professionally working with, and I'm making myself vulnerable here, working with people that are abusers. Okay, it's not a judgment.
Right.
It's just very difficult for me. But when I worked at the correctional, when I worked at the intake, I didn't have a choice.
Right.
You know, in my private practice, I can have some choice, right?
Yeah.
When I do intakes or when I do initial screenings. And one of the things that I did, I said, how can I make this something that is less anxiety provoking for me and re-traumatizing myself? I said, why not have them to work for me and work for the people that they have abused? So I started asking them questions about the grooming, about, you know, if it was your child, you know, banking on the fact that they didn't abuse their child, they abused someone else, what would you suggest someone does? And they were very open and they shared with me. And so I kept that in mind.
That's so important. I think it's a great idea,
Yeah,
too.
and so I kept that in mind when I wrote this book, things that were shared with me from people that actually had done it.
Right.
You know, and so grooming is very powerful, and people don't realize that the majority of the kids that are abused by people that they know.
Yeah.
And that they trust and that they love. So what do you do with that? You know, what do you do when someone tells you, and that's why in the back of the book I have, you know, people may tell you that they're not going to love you, that they're going to hurt your family, but they're lying. You know, they're not telling you the truth. And this is what you do, you know, and I cover that in the book. So, and that came from people that had a history or were being charged. And surprisingly enough, only out of maybe about 10 or so abusers that I spoke with, only one said that they didn't do it. All the rest of them admitted that they did it,
Right.
you know, and most people think, oh, well, they had to have been abused. The majority of them hadn't been abused.
Really?
Hadn't been abused sexually. They had been abused physically, but the majority of them had not sexually been abused. So I found that interesting as well, and that made me read some more about that because I, you know, just naturally thought, well, they were abused sexually. That's why they're doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this book is so important and it's so needed. I mean, if you as an individual, I'll say to the audience, if you were listening, and that if this is an important topic to you when it comes to child abuse, I mean, one way for you to take action is to share the book, to recommend the book, to have other parents, other educators share this book as well to their own audiences, because I think it's needed. And combating this from a young age is how we're going to stop this.
Absolutely.
It's hard to stop the abusers when they already are abusers, when it's hidden, but at least helping the children protect themselves at a young age would be ideal, what we need. I mean, I hope to be there at the Juneteenth festival here.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope to come for that, and I'll see you there. But yeah, anything else you want to share? How people should follow you, connect with you? Please share that.
Yeah, so I'm on IG as Persistence is the Way. I'm on the way that you can purchase books is through Etsy. Is Persistence is the Way .etsy.com. And I'm local, but I am, and then my email is bodysafetyzones@gmail.com. And so I am readily available, willing and, you know, ready and willing to come out and support if you have, you have events, you need someone to speak. I'm available for consult. My business, Terri E. Johnson Clinical Consultative Services, I also provide consultation and services. If you want to start a program and you need that support, I'm available for consultation for that. So, yes.
Absolutely. I think it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for putting out the book, putting out the workbook. I think it's so important.
Thank you for having us.
You sharing your own background, your own information, is so powerful. And I'm looking forward to the next books you come out, because we need it. Absolutely.
Yes. And I think that, you know, if I had something, I was really into books growing up, and I've had a couple of survivors tell me that they wish that they had a book like this.
Yeah.
I've had people share with me, which has been amazing, that they were survivors and they purchased the book.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to know how to go about it, and they didn't want to operate out of fear.
Yeah.
And my poor children, they had to deal with that. I operated a lot of times out of fear, and I was held on to them so close they wanted to like get away.
Yeah.
And so we have to be careful of that. But I know that if I had a book like that when I was growing up, that it would have prevented me from, I really believe it would have prevented me from being abused. Because one thing abusers don't like, they don't like well-informed children.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, they
that makes so
don't.
much sense.
Yeah, you can't groom a well-informed child. You can't.
Right.
You can try, but you can't, because they already know. They know that this is not playing doctor. They know that this isn't playing teacher, and that you know their body is something that belongs solely to them. If they're empowered with that information, it's going to be pretty difficult to convince them otherwise. And so that's why it's so powerful, because it empowers. It's not just about body safety, but it's about self-advocacy. It's about teaching them empowerment and how to speak up. And that'll bleed out in other areas of their life that will benefit them.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you again. Check out the book. I'll have all the links in the bio of the videos, and people can check out, get in contact with you, find the book, find the material. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah.